Welcome to ALLATRA TV Live Conversations. My name is Ed and my co-host today is Kim. She was one of our interviewees a little while back on the show, and she got inspired by the idea of creative society and decided to actively participate. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Creative Society project. These conversations are carried out on the platform of ALLATRA International Public Movement, which was the initiator for the project. And Creative Society is what we would like to have, where we could change the society by peaceful means, where everyone can live happily in abundance, have everything they need for living, and be happy, and be secure and sure about tomorrow.
Fabulous. So currently, by conducting interviews, we implement the first stage of achieving such a society, the informational stage. The more people find out about it, the faster we can implement. During our conversation on ALLATRA TV, we're using the rule of 6 handshakes. It's the theory that all the people in the world are connected through 5 or less social connections. We invite guests to our programme and they invite their friends, and thus we create the initiative much quicker. We're happy to welcome today to our programme Gary Hensel. Gary is a teacher and author. He's presently writing and teaching about wisdom, new thought movement and the growth mindset. He has published 4 books and won awards for teaching and writing. Gary recently won an international award as Author of the Year in London from the PowerHouse Global Charities group. He has also won awards for excellence in teaching at multiple academic institutions. Welcome to the programme, Gary. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing and what inspired you?
Well, it's nice to see both of you today, and thank you for the warm invitation. I took a look at several of your interviews and some of the work you're doing, and I just want to say it's some really great work and important work that needs to be done. And like you say, there's so many of us connecting on this level. My original background was in business in the corporate world. I was a director of human resources for a midsize international manufacturing company. And then I moved into academia and I taught for 20 years at 4 or 5 different institutions. And I eventually was a tenured department chair of business management and marketing. And I developed my own coursework, and I taught leadership mostly. I mean, that was my key. And as I kept growing as an individual, my teaching and my work was moving more and more kind of in a spiritual growth area. Fortunately or unfortunately, I came down with Lyme disease, which was pretty severe, and I was forced to kind of retire a little bit early. And that led me to start writing. And my first book was called I Am. Its concept is the power of I am. What you say after those words creates the life you want. And I used that to help myself heal. And then I started sharing that. And not a big social media guy, but I got online as my research showed that authors are really connect a lot, especially on Twitter. And so I started tweeting quotes from famous individuals, great thinkers throughout history, a few of my own. And that kind of really took off. And I've a total on social media, I have about 130,000 followers now. And that is almost bigger than my writing, and I spend a couple hours every day just answering people from all over the world. And it's just, it's fascinating, the connection. And of course, many people are very critical of social media, but I'm finding just this beautiful group of core people that are doing great work from every part of the globe. And it's so great that technology can have us connect, like with you, and that 6 separation, who I met that then introduced me to another person, and then in this case it was to Ross that you had on for an interview, and then I find out that you had already interviewed several people I know, and so it's fascinating.
It's a very small world, isn't it,
Yes.
Gary? We, like you say, and that's a really great title, I Am, and then what comes after it. As you know from spiritual work, the greatest question every human has to answer is, who am I? You know, if you know the answer to that, you know, you've done all right, because a lot of us in search all through our life, and we don't quite know who we are, really, if you think about it. Yes, so you've written quite a few books, and the titles are just wonderful, outstanding. Notes to a Younger Me. I Am, obviously we talk about two of the most powerful words. Yes, they are. And Tough Roads, another one. I mean, yeah, we can relate to that. It's double meaning all over the place, right? And
Yes.
soon to be released, Lessons for a Spiritual Warrior. Now, I'll be looking forward to that. Now, that is something that a lot of us probably consider themselves to be, but not quite there, not sure. So I'm sure that book will come in really handy. Tell me about the Notes to a Younger Me. That sounds really good. It's like a wise man decided to, if he could, write to his younger self. Am I right?
Yes, and you know, whether it's you hear a great song, or you read a great poem, or you watch, read a great book, and you think, especially like something like in a song, like this, the songwriter will tell you, well, I actually wrote that in 5 minutes. But the truth is, it took your whole life to write that song. You know, it might only take 5 minutes to finish it, but it might have taken 40, 50 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
And the Notes to the Younger Me is very much about that. And I open up talking about, this is a message to the 6-year-old me, the 10-year-old me, the 15-year-old me, you know, and the idea that at that time, like a lot of people, you're going through life, and some good and some bad, and you're overcoming things, and you make a lot of mistakes, but not just mistakes as far as, you know, you wish you could take them back, but you hopefully want to learn from them. And I wish I had something like this book, or a mentor that would have come and sat next to me once in a while and giving me just some basic wisdom about life. And so I started writing it, and I wrote it. It's actually very much to me. It's not written to like a large audience. So some of the things might have, you know, no real connection to people reading it. But I thought that was the only honest way to do it. You know, to write that and then release it. And I'm getting a lot of great response from it. People all over the world telling me, a lot of people telling me they're handing it to their children, especially the teenage children and stuff like that, you know. So it's a very simple book. Most of my writing is very simple, you know, just a prose. And that also helps with today's reader, you know, with people wanting instant. And, you know, I started out writing a really thick book of wisdom originally way back, and nobody's going to read that, you know. So I went to the concept when I taught, we all have strengths and weaknesses. And I thought my strength as a teacher was simplifying everything. So that's what I got to do in my writing. And I've done that, and I kind of found my voice, and now people are connecting with that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
It sounds really good. And I loved what you said earlier about the fact that it might only take 5 minutes to write the song, but it can take 50 years to get there. It reminds me of a quote from Pablo Picasso, which is, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. And I think often it takes a long time to find it, doesn't it? And then once we've got there, it's how we give it away. So you've already shared some amazing ways that you connect with people. I loved that you were saying about the social media and how that's grown. How do you see that being able to help us support a co-creative society?
Well, what we're doing right now, you know, without this technology, we wouldn't have connected to start with, and we wouldn't be able to have, Zoom meetings that are broadcast instantly on several different platforms. And then, of course, now this has all been amplified with the virus, and what's interesting, a lot of these movements were happening, but I think the virus amplifies not only what's going on in society, but what's going on in individuals. You learn a lot about people when you observe how they are reacting to the virus.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have actually got in touch with themselves a little bit more than usual, without having to rush to work every day, where you have a chance to stop and actually think what you're doing and why you're doing it. And a lot of people like being at home more, spending more time with their families, with their friends, doing stuff on social media that they like doing or whatever, some people love working, going to work, but it showed them what your true self is, and I think it had, with all the negative sides to it, it had a lot of positivity out of it. Yes, I think with the future, as creative society is growing, everyone is sort of doing more and more. And as you say, we said that we do use media a lot more, social media, and having a creative society more present there is very important, I think. What advice would you give anybody that was to change their life? And because you had a massive change, from doing all the stuff with corporate world and then teaching and then suddenly writing, and you were forced into that. But what would you advise for somebody who might be thinking of making big changes, maybe even due to the virus, like circumstances have changed, and what advice could you give them? Where to start? What to do,
All advice should really come from within. I believe all the answers are already inside of you. And you can certainly read a book or talk to a good mentor or be inspired by music or a movie, but ultimately it's inside of you. And what we've seen is the virus, people are forced to have more alone time. And I think that's a great thing. So many people are afraid to be alone. Spend some time, read a little bit, meditate, walk in nature, slow down a little bit. So potentially one of the positives that's really come out of this is hopefully people look at it in some positive way and maybe reconnect it with themselves and maybe think about, maybe I want to live somewhere different. Maybe I want to do something different for a career. You get caught up in that rat race and you realize you're spending hours on the freeway and, working tons of overtime, making widgets or whatever, and are you inspired? Are you fulfilled? I don't buy into this, like, this is the worst time in human history. That tells me you haven't studied any history. That is really just the ego. The ego tells us, oh, now is the worst time, or now is the best time, or the world's coming to an end. The truth is, throughout the history of mankind, we've always been challenged. And for most of us, we have a higher standard of living than any generation before us. Most of us live better than kings did 100 years ago, with the technology we have, and so we're feeling so sorry for ourselves, and we're feeling like victims. And I think you need to turn that and say, yes, this is a challenge, but we will overcome it. And I also don't believe the world's coming to an end. I believe just the opposite. And through these social media connections, there's an awakening going on. There are more and more people who are becoming more spiritual, for a simple way to say it, getting connected with themselves, getting connected with the earth, trying to have healthier relationships, trying to explore the meaning of life and what is it for them. those are all positive things. I think humankind is growing and evolving in a positive way.
I agree.
Yeah.
I love that. And it strikes me that, we often look back at things and say, with the benefit of hindsight, we have 2020 vision. And it strikes me that here we are almost at the end of 2020. And it's almost as if nature's making us have that chance to reflect and to rethink, to repurpose, and to reevaluate what's important to us. And I think that's been long over needed, hasn't it? So that we can actually connect with ourselves more, as you've said, and connect with each other more and be more collaborative. So, with all that you've already learned so far, what do you envision for the society you would like to be part of in the future?
Well, certainly the kind of work that your group is doing, and it comes out in many different forms, different nationalities, different religions, different political views, but it still is a very similar. I think there's a movement. Again, the word I use is towards spirituality, and that's a vague term, and it can mean different things for different people. And I don't want to really define it, but I see a positive. I have on a daily basis have conversations with people, not only on social media, but just, in person. And you're surprised actually how spiritual they are. You might not know that about them, and you start getting into some deep conversation. And it just, to me, it feels like a really positive movement. And again, we could look at the virus and say, oh, why is this happening to me? Look at how drastically my life is changing. But I talk about in some of my writing, we always have to look for the gift. When I got Lyme disease, it devastated me financially, relationships. I was at the height of my career. I loved what I was doing. I developed my own coursework. I was, in education. I was finally making some good money. And it just all came to a stop, and it was even more difficult because I didn't get an accurate diagnosis for about 3 years. And then it's still a vague disease that not really accepted by the medical community. So it devastated me. So on that day, certainly I could feel like a victim, and I've healed a lot. I've come a long way from a physical standpoint, but on the good days, I can see it as a gift. And of course, on the bad days, it's a little bit harder to do that, so the analogy would be the virus. Certainly, we're going to get devastated. People are going to lose homes and jobs, but like you said, 20 years from now, you may look back and say, "Wow, that relationship I was in wasn't really healthy," or that job. Now that I look back, it wasn't a healthy job for me or an environment, And I may have lost everything financially, but I'm happier today. And so look for the gift. It is there somewhere. Sometimes it's hard to find, but it's there.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. I think a lot of people don't realize that we're dual in nature. I mean, it's a simple thing. Once you start working on yourself, you sort of get to realize, actually, there's a spiritual side to me, and there is, the other side, the dark side, as they call it, So, and once you start looking at that, you realize, well, actually, what do I want to be? Do I want to be more spiritual? Or do I want to be even darker, And due to conditions in the world today, a lot of people waking up spiritually. And my next question for you would be, obviously, I know you've gone into spiritual growth, development. What was the main kick for you to actually go and indulge in it?
It actually started when I was a very small child.
Right.
And I was, like a lot of us, brought up in an organized religion. And I was always thinking and questioning, and I think it's an ongoing 50 plus years of spiritual growth. That's the way I look at it. And it's kind of like sometimes you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and we're human. There's lessons we have to learn, and some of those lessons keep showing up in our life, which tells us we haven't learned them yet. And so we're not perfect. We make mistakes. But but and again, we're talking about that talk to a younger me. I would love to talk to a younger me about some of the things that I've learned spiritually, and so again, yeah, it wasn't a moment. It just was a constant growth throughout my life. And again, obviously, I think the Lyme disease was one of those times where I took a couple steps forward spiritually.
Brilliant, brilliant. I can relate to that very much indeed. I remember when I was a kid walking around in my parents' flat, asking myself, why am I here? What am I doing here? Why is it actually me? Why wasn't somebody else? Why does it have to be me? And it was weird. I thought I was, something wrong with me, but later on you realize that was the spiritual side in you trying to connect and trying to talk to you and trying to get you going, really. It's wonderful that a lot of people are waking up, and I think Creative Society is the way to go for further, because it's only going to make it better and shinier, as they say.
Yep, I agree.
Fabulous. I mean, honestly, it's such a fascinating topic, isn't it? Because I think you mentioned earlier, Gary, that the answers are always within. I think sometimes the bit that we struggle with is to ask the right questions to get those answers. Is there any tips you could share on how best we address some of that so that we can go inside and find those answers?
I think you hit it right on the head. The biggest mistake we make is asking the wrong question. And that's something we learn through wisdom. Like, we're beating our head against the wall. It could be a relationship, it could be a job, it could be finances, health. But many times we're so deep in it, we can't see the big picture. And we keep asking that wrong question, which many times it's usually, why me? Why me? As soon as you say, why me, you're losing your own power. You're saying I'm a victim. Somebody hurt me. Somebody told a vicious lie about me. And then we start judging them, like, why are they such a bad person? Why are they evil? Anytime we start doing that, we're moving away from self. We're moving away from our core energy. We're moving away from God, the universe, whatever you feel comfortable with. And so when you start continually look within, and I don't mean like everything's my fault and you fall into a deep depression. You start accepting that maybe you did cause some of this stuff to you. It's really hard when it's bad stuff, really hard. But ask yourself, why is this happening to me? Not as a victim, but in what lesson am I supposed to be learning? Why does this lesson keep showing up in my life? Maybe now, maybe there's something there. And then curling back to what we were talking about earlier, spend some time alone. Try meditating. And people say, well, I can't meditate. My mind wanders. Well, you don't have to be, in the yoga position. There's walking meditation. Get out in nature and do a little nature hike. I even in the backyard, I have a little basketball court, and I'll go out there and just shoot all by myself. And I'm meditating doing that. And when I walk, I'm meditating. And when I sit and ground every morning with my bare feet to the earth, and then that's when some of the answers start coming to you in those quiet moments. But we're so afraid to spend time with ourselves. Even when we're walking or running, we got to have headphones on. We have to listen to music, and it's always something. And why are we so afraid of ourselves? Why are we so afraid of being alone? And that'll tell you something about yourself.
Yeah, I can relate to that totally. I know what you're talking about. And what also is unapparent for many people is that when my mind wanders a lot. I'm dyslexic, so my mind just I could be reading a book, and about a paragraph later, I've read the second paragraph, didn't realize I read it. I've been thinking about something else. not paying attention to the actual letters and words that I'm reading. So I have to reread things 2-3 times in a row, just to get the meaning of what I'm trying to actually read, But it's all to do with where we place our attention. If those thoughts distract you, that means you're attracted to them. If you change your priorities, like you go and shoot a ball, in a basket, that's a brilliant way to get your concentration in a different area. There's loads of techniques. Meditation is obviously a wonderful technique, if you do it in progression. And it's wonderful to do things like that. But yes, and the fear of being alone is that where the thoughts will stop coming in, because you might realize, hold on a minute, what am I doing? It's that realization. Yeah, am I going crazy? Yeah, no, people need to spend time with themselves and get in touch with their spiritual side. That's for sure. I think a lot. I mean, from your experience, obviously, when you wrote that book about giving yourself advice when you were younger, this is when you open up to the public. And I think, when someone comes to see me, I mean, obviously to do with my job, and they open up, I'm open with them, and I feel like they're part of my life. Although it's a professional relationship, it's no barriers. There is no, and I think that openness is what we all need in creative society, where everybody could relate to one another, share their worst and their best moments. And how do you think this can be implemented on a worldwide sort of scale, where people stop building up brick walls or barriers, and just open up and talk to each other?
Yeah, and that's what you're describing as an intimacy,
Yeah.
Even right now, we're talking and we're getting intimate with each other. We're understanding more about the individual than we see on the facade. And yeah, we need to open up. I always believe the old adage: the best way to learn is to teach. And all my years of teaching, even when I was in the corporate world and I was in leadership positions and then teaching, it was always a constant growth. And so it's the same way here. I'm writing to myself as much as to anybody else. And then I think, when you get to that point, you understand you have to share it. You have to share. That's your purpose. And the people that you are potentially helping is so dynamic and so rewarding. And things like this, we're connecting through Zoom, and again, because of the virus right now, some of us are forced to do more of this. But we're seeing that, okay, this technology can be for spiritual growth, and so you're using it to spread your message internationally. People all over the world are watching the interviews that you're doing and the work that you're doing. And then that inspires them. That becomes a muse as well. Just like I could be reading a great thinker, and it just kind of becomes a muse. Like maybe there's one thing they said, and I'll just pull back and let that kind of soak in, and you kind of piggyback on it and get your mind going that way. So the work you're doing is the way we do it. That's how we spread this message. We use whatever vehicle there is at the time. And right now, technology is a core vehicle to communicate.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what we try. We get there. I just wanted your opinion. It's great. Thank you.
I think it's fascinating how technology is making us able to connect wider, isn't it? We've suddenly found that although it is a small world, it's become even smaller because we can connect to each other through things like Zoom and to continue the conversation, I guess, and to enhance the movement. And you've already mentioned, there seems to be a lot of interest right now in us doing something differently, in us being able to make a positive change and really connect with kind of who we are individually, but use that then to connect with each other so that we can move forward in a more positive way. How do you see that education is going to be able to help support that growth?
That's and education is changing right now. You know, some of it may be good, some of it bad. But you know, when Twitter first came out and I was teaching business and marketing, and my students who were very young and should have been more knowledgeable than me were like, "What is Twitter?" And again, now it seems silly the way you would describe that, but I finally said, "All right, it's viral marketing. Think of viral marketing." And that's really what it is. All these different social media platforms. So here we're using the word virus in a positive way. You know, and this what you talked about, the 6 degrees of separation. And so education is so open now. So going way back in early 90s. I was one of my, I had a graduate degree that was completely distance learning. And at the time, it was the first accredited program in the United States for distance learning. And it would be crude by today's standards, but it enabled me to go to a university that was, 2,000 miles away. And I couldn't do with working and small children I was helping raise and, everything that, so it was, and I saw it as a very positive thing. And of course, then technology continued to advance. So the same way, I think you're going to see more and more hybrid models in education. And we started doing that. Again, this was 20 years ago, developing hybrid models where students would be in the classroom part of the time, but then they would be online part of the time. And we were even going into corporate America and getting like cohorts within that company, people that wanted to get into leadership positions. So we would gather them in a cohort, and I would go onto their facility and teach. And then that was also partly online. And then we also had like 3 different classes that the students were taking 3 different classes at the same time with 3 different instructors. And we were combining projects. So this project would be for all 3 classes, and that was an early model too. And we were going around the United States to other colleges and universities and showing them what we were doing as that kicked off. So again, you're seeing all of this now with the virus. This was here. It's just accelerated all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes, I have. I'm doing a course at the moment on Open University. It's a brilliant university we have in England, which does loads of courses, and it's all distance learning. If it didn't exist, I couldn't do it. But it's wonderful. Right. So we had a lot of surveys. We've questioned a lot of people, thousands and thousands of people all around the world. And we were asking them basic questions, how they see creative society, what sort of life do they want, what they, how do they see a happy life, what's most important to them. We come up with 8 foundations that sort of summarize all the answers. After conducting those interviews, and you familiarized yourself with the 8 foundations, right? So for the viewers, I will repeat that those foundations can be found in an article on allatraunites.com. If you go on our website like that, yes, and Creative Society article is just below there with that symbol there with the figure 8, and all the foundations are listed and the actual stages of bringing about Creative Society. It's a wonderful, short little essay. You can just read that. It's very, very, very good. Very straight to the point, light and wonderful. Gary, when you looked at the 8 foundations, which drew your attention the most out of the 8?
One is something that is kind of the core of what I'm doing, is that we are all one. Yeah. And we need to drop them versus us. We do this in politics. We do it by countries. We do it by nationalities and race and religion and all of those types of things. And as we continue to evolve as human beings and grow as a larger society, I think we'll hopefully move away from them and us. And you will see you are part of every other individual, and it's a collective whole.
Yeah. Is those divide and conquer words, isn't it, come to mind every time you hear about any kind of division. And at the end of the day, you think about it, you go, we're all human beings. We live on this planet, which is our home. Why can't we make it our home properly, where everyone's happy and has everything they need? There's no division, there's no struggling, everyone's, it can be done. It's not, it's not impossible. Yeah, great words. One family, that's what humanity needs, right? So we don't feel isolated. We don't feel forgotten or left out somewhere, right, on the curb, like a poor unwanted pet or something, God forbid. I think if you had the choice, if you had the choice to speak to all of humanity today, if you had the microphone and you knew everybody's listening all around the world, what would you say to them?
Well, to repeat myself, that we are one. We are all one. We are all interconnected. And there's an energy that we put off and how we connect with each other. And once you accept that concept, then so many of these other things start falling away. And you can look at any individual and see yourself, see God, again, whatever your beliefs are in that. And then you start having more empathy. And we talked about there's enough of everything for everybody. We still have hunger and things like that, but there's enough. We just don't see each other as all one where we would share it.
Wow.
Thank you.
Very, very true. It's so much to take on board from all that you've said today. But what I'd like to do is thank you for all that you've shared so far, and also remind our viewers that what we like to do is ask our guests. So I'm about to ask who else they would like to see in your seat, sharing their wisdom on how we can create this society together. So if you could have anybody else interviewed, who would it be?
I've been collaborating, beautiful, intelligent woman that teaches at Harvard. She teaches at Harvard Medical School. And she's been one of the pioneers of lifestyle medicine. And so, in the simplest terms, we start to mind, body, spirit. And I was fortunate enough in February to teach with her, and we taught a master class called Thrive. And she, of course, was into the medical, the body, and I was a little bit more into the spiritual. And so we had a nice combination, and we were going to start doing that more, and then the virus hit, But her name is Dr. Beth Frades, and she has co-authored a book that was chosen one of the top medical books of all time. So she's a fascinating individual. She does a lot of podcast and TV and radio interviews and things like that. And that might be a nice component to what you're doing. We have so many broad components, and bring somebody in with a medical background.
Yeah, we need everybody. We need everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, where you are, we need everybody. Because being one family and having problems, we need to, resolve them together. And yeah, medical profession is good. Me being part of it myself. So yes, it would be wonderful. So let her know. We'll be getting in touch with her. Gary, it's been really nice to talk to you. And as always, I feel we never have enough time for our interview. But, we don't want to bore our viewers, and we don't want to make you tired. And also, we'd like to do it again. So there is a chance for another one, So thank you so much for coming on and being with us today and sharing your views and letting us into your life. I feel like we're closer now. We're like almost related. It's great. Thank you so much. I'd like to remind all our viewers that anybody anywhere can go on allatraunites.com and use the Join Us button on the top there. You can see it now. You'll have choice of languages, which you can select, fill a short form, leave a short comment, and get in touch. And you can take part. You can be part of this wonderful international project conducted by volunteers. And we just love doing it because I would have never met Gary, for instance, today. Gary Hensel, thank you so much again. Brilliant to talk to you.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation, and we will meet in person someday.
I certainly hope so, because we got loads to talk about.
And I've done this where, you feel like you know the person,
Yeah. There's so much more.
You absolutely do. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. You've already shared such amazing wisdom and advice for us today, like remembering that we are all one. But if you could wish one final thing for the viewers watching, what would it be, please?
They find peace within themselves, even with the heartaches, even with the loss of life, whatever you're struggling with, divorce, bankruptcy, loss of a job, political strife, find peace each day.
Oh, bless you. What a lovely, lovely wish. And it leads me to the final piece, which is we can build a world that the humanity deserves, but we can only do it together, united by one goal. Thank you all for watching.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, by ourselves, we could do it a lot slower. Together, we could do it super fast, like the Super Marios,
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, and
Thanks
take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Bye.